Okay, we're calling meeting to order. Let's start with it's an action item, approving the order of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, so that's approved. We'll move on to the minutes of the February 19th meeting. It's an action item.
May I move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so that is approved. So we'll move over to Sunny for the staff report.
Yes, so it is National Noodle Month, if you did not know. So in children's, we are having a number of noodle-themed activities. On Wednesday, March 27th and the 28th, we are going to be having some children's events with actual edible noodles, the crafts for children ages 2 to 5. And then after that, on the 28th, they're going to pull out some pool noodles and do some activities with that. And then after that, on the same day, we will be having some family activities taking place with all kinds of noodles, and that'll be at 6:30. So be sure to check out our website and get the complete listing of locations and times. Teen events that are upcoming for this month. So we actually have one going on right now. It's the Glow Games. So teens and tweens are encouraged to wear neon or glow-in-the-dark clothing, and then they're battling it out. I don't know exactly how, but I heard it's supposed to be epic. I guess we'll find out here at 5 o'clock when the program gets over with at Carlson. But there is one more that will be taking place on the 21st at 4 p.m. at the main library. And then we are going to be having 2 dragon-themed events coming up next month. So April 11th at the Dr. James Carlson Library at 4 p.m. and then Saturday, April 13th at the main library at 2 p.m. Adults, we have quite a few things going on. March 24th at the main library at 2 p.m. we're going to be having From Saffron and Rosewater to Blood and Oil, Iran and Its Culture. So this event is in partnership with the Cultural Diversity Resources Office, and Miriam Dashtipur will be presenting that. And then on the 27th, we are going to be having a history of Mid-America Steel and electric trolleys here in Fargo-Moorhead. That's going to be presented by Mark Peel. He works for the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County, so that should be fairly interesting. And we are in the planning phase of the 2019 One Book, One Community project. The selection this year was Fly Girls, How 5 Daring Women Defied All Odds and Made Aviation History by Keith O'Brien. So as we know that this is in partnership with all the local libraries, and we do thank the Friends for generously supporting this project. It's a big undertaking. And very big news, guys. The Design a Bookmark contest is now open to all ages. So we have one for children's, one for teens, and one for adults. That is happening now, and it goes through March 23rd. So be sure to go pick up your entry forms at the library, or I think that they can also be downloaded from our website if you want. Past programs and events. Children's, we did just have our Dr. Seuss program on the 2nd. We had over 296 people in attendance to help us celebrate his birthday. And then we also had the Holi Festival of Colors on the 17th. Dr. Rashani Ganesh Pillai from NDSU was here, and they did like a story time, they did a craft, all the usual great things that our children's department puts on every time, and we had about 75 people in attendance for that one. For adults, we held another session of Cooking Healthy with Your Instapot. Family Wellness came and helped out with that one. And then we also just finished our winter readathon, as you probably see in your packets. So we collected 95 toiletry items And that amounted to $475 in fines forgiven. Those items will go to the Gladys Ray Shelter. And then we also collected 2,370 food items, which amounted to $11,850 in forgiven fines. Those items are going to go to the Great Plains Food Bank. So we thank everyone who participated in that. And then also, we just closed the submissions for the Northern Narratives Writing Project. We had 90 submissions this year, which is almost double what we had last year. So the program is definitely growing. And that was in 3 different categories: poetry, essay, and short stories. So again, we thank the Friends for supporting that project. That is all I have, unless you have any questions.
Let's see, folks, do you guys have any questions for Sunny?
I hear you have a program coming up here soon.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Okay.
what's that?
On Tuesday, April 23rd, the day of the book, Don Quixote, What Makes the Modern Novel Modern?
Oh, mark your calendars.
Yes, definitely, mark your calendars. Yes, be there in case no one else is.
Well, okay. Thank you, Sunny. It's always, you guys are always doing an awesome job, covering a bunch of different topics, all age groups. It's always, one of the highlights of these meetings is always to find out what you guys are up to, and it's always exceeds expectations.
Well, we have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, I have a question. After these are submitted, what happens? These, the narrative and the
So-
writing projects?
They are being sent off for judging right now. They all have to be triplicated and then assorted into mostly random packets, and we have about 20 different judges looking at those. I think the average packet was around 13,000 words. So we will be expecting those back mid-April so that we can start building the book, hopefully so that we can have the author celebration in June, end of June, because it usually, they give us a range of anywhere between, I think last year when we looked, it was somewhere between 8 days and 16 days between production and shipping. So we always kind of play a numbers game there on when's the earliest we can get these books into the author's hands.
Wow,
And then the published volume also becomes part of our collection.
oh, very good. It must be fun to be one of those judges. Get that package.
Are you volunteering? I'm going to keep you on the
maybe
list for next year.
When I retire, I will give you my name.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, thanks, Sunny.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now Tim's gone this meeting for family issues, so we have Beth. So Beth can kick us off here with the director's report.
Yes, you have Tim's report in front of you. I think much of it is activities that you are used to seeing. I'd like to draw attention to the February 22nd all-staff meeting and Code Adam training, and that was in response to staff suggestion of how in our buildings, particularly if we have multiple ways out of spaces, do we handle lost child or possibly abducted child, and how we have some follow-up work to do in further developing and refining procedures, but to make sure our space is safe for kids. And so being proactive in working with Mike Mitchell of City Training Coordinator and getting that training. Any other questions on, not that I necessarily can answer everything regarding his report, but if you had any questions?
No, it doesn't seem like we do.
All right, so then moving on to statistical reports and the February usage. Some of the numbers may be slightly out of the norm. It was a short month with a holiday and a closure, so 6% down in door count, I think is largely due to those, both a blizzard closing and a holiday. 2 days gone out of 28 of service, it makes an impact on door count. I think the other thing Tim had highlighted to me was the electronic activity, and we are still in conversation with City Information Services about getting our calendar of events more user-friendly. And so that's an ongoing discussion, an ongoing process of working with that to hopefully draw attention to our events and make it workable for folks. The other thing in moving on to circulation figures, total print up year to date by 3.59%. Some of the percentages are really, really large with Northport, if you look at it, but we're dealing with fairly small base numbers. So small amounts of change can cause huge percentage increases. So, and it's still just February of the year, so more to come on that. Again, looking at non-print, also strong over last year, and again, some interesting numbers in terms of, kits dealing, 138% increase looks fantabulous, but the numbers are actually fairly small. But overall total circulation up 5.7% from last year, which is always good. Any question regarding usage? Yes, Jan?
I'm just curious, I've been on board now a little over a year, and this web page count has always been kind of a sticking point, I think. A questionable number, maybe is a better statement. I'm just wondering, last month, a couple months ago, we heard from staff about all of the ways that we connect, digitally with folks. And is there a better number that we should be looking at? Certainly the web page counts, web page hits are important, but I know you do so much on Facebook and many of the other platforms. Is there another number we should look at or not?
I immediately don't know. And I think a couple of forthcoming. I think you've heard from Melissa Duncan, our community relations specialist in previous months, regarding our scope of outreach and our Facebook page and the activity on it. It's not an ongoing month-to-month stat, but it is definitely something that we look at and we could provide to you. I think one of the other things that's going to be happening, if Tim had talked last month about reshaping the teams, what we call our work teams within the library. Okay, so we have staff members from across departments, whether children's, reference, or circulation, that work together on areas of activity that impact us all, such as staff development, one I work with, such on programming and promotions people are involved in. And one of the new teams that we've established for this year is analytics. What do we count? Do we look at what we count? What do we do with the data we collect? And can we make better database decisions based on the information we already collect? So I think you may see more numbers. I shouldn't promise on behalf of anybody, neither Tim or Ben, who is leading that team. But you may see more in months, years to come of different metrics that we're keeping track of and measuring to hopefully do a better job of assessing our impact in the community or how good we're making use of what we have.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions so far? Nope.
All right, then we will move on to the financial report, which again, we're just at the end of February, so it's all pretty easy at this point, but even just making note that we're 17% through the year and 12.2% spent out, so we're even below target for this point of the year. Did anyone have any question about any specific line items that I can look into further? Because I'm not sure I would have an immediate answer.
I know it's still early in the year for both
Yes.
usage and circulation, but it is promising to me that the numbers are up just because, and not up on circulation and not exceeding on usage, just because with the weather that we've been having, it seems like the cost to heat, and it seems like our bills would be taking a hit, and then circulation would be, it seems like, it would be impacting it negatively, whereas it seems like what we're seeing here is that we're still doing great, so.
The community is still growing. Carlos and I were sharing memories of various storm seasons past. I think Jan's been here through 96, 97 too. The beginning of that winter, you just saw people disappear. by the time you got to February and March, you had people come into the library in advance of the forecast and stocking up with their books and movies and just stockpiling before being stuck inside for 48 hours. I think I've seen a little bit that's just purely anecdotal, but I think I've observed a little bit of that behavior. Sonny might be able to attest to it more at the circulation side. There is definitely, I think, an element of that in bad winters.
Sure. Well, it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you have more for us to?
Okay, so that would be the basic budget. Okay, then moving on to the donation summary and just highlighting the sources of some of those revenue. The $200 unrestricted donation is a memorial donation from Advanced Dental in memory of Marilyn Brandt. With the restricted donations, we received a $50 donation for the adult collection at Northport, $100 from the Friends for the Garden Series, and another $200 memorial donation. Also, transferring, and Betsy can perhaps elucidate on this a little bit more, if I'm understanding this correctly. So we had received a donation. It's now showing up in the expense because it has been transferred to the endowment account with Ephemeria Foundation. So it is out of our individually held funds and transferred over to the foundation. So that's technically $5,000 out, but it still essentially is ours. There were some refunds for a damaged item ordered using Friends funds. The $250 refund. There's also $300 for a programming donation for prize books. And Friends have also supported our staff development in all the Soup Week supplies, and way to go, staff acknowledgement.
Okay. Okay, any questions? No. Well, thank you, Beth. You did a very great job. And I know we're going to be hearing from you probably later on the corporate sponsorship opportunity. So we'll give you a little break here.
All right.
And we'll move on to MB, Mary Beth, with the Friends of the Library report.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here. My name is Mary Beth Hagstead. I'm the new president of the Friends of the Fargo Public Library. I took over in that role in January. I'd like to start by saying publicly thank you to our retiring board members, Bob Jansen, Bob Hinnenkamp, and Lynn Moore for their many years of service and dedication to the Friends. I'm confident that our funding requests as they come through are things that Sunny and Tim and Beth and the other staff of the library acknowledge excuse me, on an ongoing basis, so I won't belabor all of our contributions since I've taken over as president. But I did want to highlight a couple of upcoming events that we are really excited about. Again, this may be some repetition, but it's my first time here. So the first one being the Party for the Community on April 29th to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the opening of the new main library. I hope that everyone is able to attend that fun party that we are funding. And the William Kent Kruger author visit on May 6th is something that we're also really excited about, an author that many people in our community are very familiar with. And we have no doubt this will be a very well-attended event. At one of my future visits, I'll put another plug in for the One Book, One Community author visit. Thank you for mentioning it for the first time today, Sunny. We are very excited about that. But big news, mark your calendars. The Friends will be having a used book sale on May 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So please come out and support the Friends of the Fargo Public Library by purchasing some used books. As well, since I'm mentioning this, if you are a member of the Friends of the Fargo Public Library, your membership entitles you to 2 free books at each book sale. So if you're interested in becoming a member, please stop by the bookstore at the main library. Actually, any of the branches have our brochures available there, and we would love your support. Speaking of the bookstore is having a naming contest. We currently don't have a name for the bookstore, and we would like to rectify that. So we are having a contest to name the bookstore. So put on your thinking caps. If you have a really great idea, there's a prize, and the prize is a $50 gift card to Zambros. And so that should really motivate you to come up with some great ideas for us to consider for our bookstore name. And also, speaking of the bookstore, keep in mind, everybody out there, that we do take donations of your used books and media items, and we would love to put them to use, putting them in our sale and generating more money so that we can do neat things to support the library. Unless anyone has any questions, I believe that's my report.
Well, you beat me to the punch because I was going to ask about donations. So folks can just drop those off. If people want to make donations for the book sale, they can just drop them off inside at any location, or just at the main library. And do they drop them off at the front desk, or go into the bookstore specifically, or?
Well, we take them, and actually Beth might be a better person to ask this question too. I know at the main library we have an area that we can store them. If we're talking about big quantities, we'd appreciate a heads up. You know, if we're talking about 20 boxes of books, then we need to make some, accommodations for that. But if we're talking about a box full or whatever, that's something that we can accommodate on the fly.
It can be received either at the Friend Store if the Friend Store is open. Otherwise, the circulation staff will take it at any of the 3 locations.
Thanks, Beth.
You also said media. What media items do you take?
Your old CDs,
Oh, really? Okay.
DVDs, audiobooks, so any of those formats, we will
I know
try to sell.
Carlson currently has a large selection of classical CDs available for sale. Apparently somebody has digitized their collection and is decluttering the physical CDs.
I might be able to.
Okay. Well, and I also had a question about the book event on May 6th.
Please.
So it's, because we were talking about that as an office today, because we got some folks that are excited about that author. Now, is he coming out with a new book, or is it just because it's a book signing? Is that the event is a book signing, or is it just a meet and greet? Or am I putting you on the spot? Is a little,
Yes.
okay. Well, I know it's a couple months away. We have some avid fans in our office, so we were just talking about it this morning. And so we were wondering, is there a new book coming out? And we can probably just Google it. But because it said something about a book signing, and but
I imagine that he will be available after his presentation, like at most author visits for signing. But I don't know the answer to whether he has a new book
coming out. Okay.
Apologize.
Okay. Well,
But I hope to be back, or maybe somebody can talk about it next month. We have one more month.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's 2
meetings
months
before-
away. I put you on the spot here. Yeah. So we were just, curious as an office today, because we have some fans of his work. So, okay. So does anybody else have any questions for Mary Beth? No, and Mary Beth, thank you for, Bob, if he's listening, he certainly left big shoes to fill, and but there's no doubt that you will do a great job. So welcome, and yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is unfinished business. We don't have any, so we can move on back to Beth for our new business, which is the corporate sponsorship opportunities.
Which really in some ways is continuing business, because this is something that has flown out of the newest strategic plan and exploring more corporate sponsorship opportunities. And I believe Tim has presented some initial ideas to you. So this is filling you in with progress steps of where we are along the way. So we've worked as a staff to identify some of the possible programs that would be suitable for corporate sponsorship, and you have information about 2 of them in front of you. The annual Jazz into Fall series, and then also part of, or One Book, One Community. Sometimes it is a big project, even bigger, with great support from the Friends, but depending on how to grow an event, and particularly the media buys. It could be something that we would also invite corporate sponsorship. That would be one of the ones involved. Jazz, we have not had sponsorships for, and the one collateral piece in front of you is kind of the bit of what would go into the ask, giving the history of why live performance at the library and live music and the long-standing tradition that we have with that, and also encouraging then corporations to be a part of keeping the music coming. And then also Tim and Melissa have refined in terms of the various support levels and what would be involved in the acknowledgement involved. Part of the why we are seeking, and Tim probably has gone into this, of course, is getting the message out is harder than ever. When I started, print media was huge, and there was great partnership with the nonprofits, and you could put out a press release and you would get coverage, and it saturated the market. There's a whole lot more noise in different channels, and not everybody is in tune to one way anymore, so it requires more funds to get the message out. We still throw great parties. It's a little bit harder to get the invitation sent. And so that's part of it behind that. And then sort of similar material for the One Book, One Community read and author event. And again, giving the scope of what would be at various donor levels. And so largely informational and gathering responses or input.
Sure. Yeah, at this point, it's not an action item. So
Correct.
This is just sort of it's open for discussion and questions and to gather information at this point.
Or for me to relay work to be done later and come back to you next month.
So who would be responsible for soliciting donations?
As far as I know at this point, Tim.
Okay. Not the
Betsy
board.
nods. I don't know. I think given the governance structure, unlike 401c3s, I don't think in the bylaws that this is a fundraising board.
Sure, okay. Sounds good.
The Friends Board, that's a fundraising board.
Well, it's always encouraging to hear, because I know this is part of the strategic plan. So
Correct.
it is encouraging to always, at these meetings, to hear that continuously be in the forefront of the library's mind, that it's not this item that we did and set aside, and then, we
Right.
revisit it 3 years later, and it just has been sitting on a shelf. So this is my understanding, this is our first stab at this. So, or maybe we've had sponsorship.
For ongoing programs for public events or programs beyond Friends support, which has certainly been a huge part to give our success with the buildings and everything to where we are right now. For programs, in 2002, 2004, we had the Bodmer Catlin collection. We encouraged corporations to sponsor a print to establish the Adopt a Print program to reframe and preserve those which are now part of our Bodmer Catlin gallery. But for ongoing programs or an annual event, no, this is the first venture into corporate sponsorship.
Well, and that's exciting to venture into new territory and see where that strategic plan is going to take us. And to clarify, this isn't, because we do often use the Friends,
Correct.
So this is not in lieu of the Friends.
No.
This is kind of a supplement type.
And I would imagine that going forward, there would be continued conversation with the Friends, where how all these partnerships could work together best, to recognize the effort given by the Friends.
Well, okay. So discussion. Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions about corporate sponsorship opportunities in general, or the two that Beth has identified? Yeah.
I'm not sure I can frame my question, so I'm going to sort of blather on and
Okay.
you can help me out. Two things. First of all, it isn't strictly corporations, or is it? I think your title says corporate.
And I think that was the directive given in the strategic planning. If it were a family foundation sponsorship, I I can't speak for Tim automatically, but immediately to my mind, I don't know that that would be a difficulty. You know, if you're thinking of parallels, it is that various of the arts organizations in town, you know, there is a season sponsor for the symphony. There are concert sponsors for the Fargo-Moorhead Choral Artists. Somewhat parallel structure.
I think with the library, it's such a personal experience, as is music and art
Yeah.
and many other things. But I'm glad to hear that you're open to having, as you say, community-wide sponsors. So I think that's wise, because in fact, all of the donations, I might be overstating it, but I believe that all of the donations that have come unsolicited to the library from individuals, not corporations. I don't remember a corporate. There is a mix.
Yeah, there have been a couple, and
Okay.
one that immediately comes to mind was actually that a child of an employee had died, and then the company gave a memorial donation on behalf.
Certainly.
Yeah, so but no, even going back to the capital campaign, even the naming rights, those were a mix of corporate, foundation, individual gifts.
Well, then if I could, my second question, Rachel, would be, I know the work going into preparing these documents, but I just want to make sure that the numbers that have been selected for the categories, for example, the lowest number is 2,000 on both.
I see 1,000 on the document
is there?
I have.
For the jazz one.
Okay, 1,000 or 2,000. And was that a strategic decision as well? A high of 6,000 and down to 1,000? So you're not looking for the $100. You're really feeling that we need sponsors at a minimum of $1,000 level.
I have not been party to those discussions, so I will pass that on to a follow-up question for Tim, for him to get back to you on that, unless you wanted to go to the stand, Betsy, and had additional. I think it somewhat deals with the media costs involved.
Yeah, so we always accept donations in any amount you want to give. But for this particular project, these are projects that we're trying to do. So One Book, One Community, we have specific needs that have to be met to put on these programs. And so we're asking for specific dollar amounts for those projects. If someone wants to give and give in memory of, or for a specific project that they would like to talk about, we're certainly open to that as well, but these are for specific needs.
So all donations are always welcome.
Always accepted, yes.
Thank you. Thanks,
Well,
Betsy.
and Betsy, because this program is, by becoming a sponsor for any corporations listening right now.
Yes.
So this is beneficial to them because their name gets put on
Correct.
this kind of stuff.
Correct.
And so if you're somebody who wants to donate maybe in memoriam for a lost one, less than that $1,000 mark or the 2,000 mark, you can still do that. It's just that you wouldn't, your name and the advertisement element of it is just not going to be part of what you get for that donation, whereas
Correct.
that would be with the corporations. Okay.
And this is all just informational at this point. We are going to grow this to be as big as it can be. If it doesn't take off, it doesn't take off, but we really hope it does.
Sure.
So,
It's just baby steps right now. We'll get there.
Okay.
I think it gives an opportunity to a lot of the corporations that are seen sometimes as rather impersonal or out of the community to become part of the community, to support some of the things like the public library. So, I anticipate that this should go over well with the corporations.
And fingers
We
crossed.
have a list of corporations that give with their employee matches, like Microsoft and a couple of engineering firms in town give matches.
Yeah, and the One Book, One Community event, folks I'm sure plenty of people here have attended it. It is well attended, so it is a great opportunity to get your name out there. And I haven't personally been to the jazz one, but I imagine that is widely participated in as well. So it's a great opportunity for both, corporations and for the library. So, yeah. So, okay, so is there anything else on this topic? Not at this point. Okay, so next is public comment, and we have Betsy and Sunny in the in our public area. Both have already spoken. So
I would just follow up with Jan's earlier comment that the community meeting and public discussion about the civic space and programming ideas, which definitely will impact the library's front yard, so to speak, is happening in about an hour, 5:30 for the public presentation. As I understand it from the planning department, there will be additional information once the presentation is done. The design board's available through their website, and they're also looking for input on a public survey. So if you have thoughts, reactions, regarding interaction of the space with the library, please partake this process.
and Beth, that's in this room.
No, it's the community room of the main library
In the
across
library.
the.
Yeah, you've told me that before. Okay, yep.
I can't quite say across the lawn, across the snowfield.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So, anything else? Go ahead. Yep.
Just, Rachel, one thing. Perhaps, Beth, you could forward when that site is.
When the information from planning, yes, to the board members, certainly.
Would you? Thank you.
Okay. So, our next regular meeting is April 16th, and the meeting is adjourned.